My name is Ashley, and today I'm gonna talk to you about why I think this future is psychedelic. All right, so to begin, I'm actually an oceanographer, and Popular Science ranked an oceanographer as the second worst job in science in 2007. Because, as it says here, nothing but bad news day in and day out. And I kind of have to agree with that. It's really hard to see what's going on with this planet and not to become a bit of a pessimist. And so to give you that kind of background about where I was coming from when I arrived at this place. Does anyone know where this is? Black Rock City, Nevada, which is the home of the annual Burning Man event. All right. So this is a beautiful, magical place. And not to be cliche, but that's, my first year that I went there, I had my first experience with ecstasy. And, I mean, I knew it was going to be a good time with a name like ecstasy. But what I didn't really realize was what a lasting impact that experience was going to have on my life. It really allowed me to tap into a part of my heart and my connection with people in a way that I had never really been able to do before. I wanted to give out more, and I wanted to, coming instead of from a place of like, I need to protect what's mine and I don't want to share, to let's just share and be friends and connect and be alive and present together. So this is a really powerful experience that has lasted, that awakening kind of moment and that heart-opening moment has made a permanent impact on the way that I live my life. So before I get further, I want to define what psychedelic means because it's a bit of a fuzzy term, and some people consider ecstasy, MDMA, not a psychedelic, but for me, I'm using it as more of a broad, generic term. And it's something, some kind of substance that gives kind of a visual or auditory or some kind of different kind of perception of reality. And all psychedelics are actually not addictive, despite what the DARE program may have told you. There's a very wide range and spectrum of drugs, and psychedelics fall in a particular range, and they typically define a different kind of perspective and a way of looking at maybe your inner world or your external world. So which substance am I talking about here? Here's a menagerie of different substances considered psychedelics, and right now I'd like to do a little exercise. Close your eyes. I want you to close your eyes and look at your lap. Everybody do it. It only works if everybody does it. Okay, even people at the bar. All right. So I'd like you this is complete anonymity, everyone to raise their hand if they've ever smoked pot before. All right, hands down. That was everybody in the room, pretty much. Okay, keep your eyes closed, keep your eyes closed. All right, please raise your hand if you've ever done MDMA ecstasy. All right, put your hands down. That was maybe 60 to 70% of the room. All right, please raise your hand if you've ever done magic mushrooms. And hands down. That was maybe, again, 60% of the room. LSD, hands Psilocybin was included in mushrooms, sorry. So the LSD, that was about, again, 50% of the room. All right, DMT, hands down. All right, that was maybe 30% of the room. Okay, you can open your eyes now, look up here. Congratulations, you're all criminals. So, but it looks like you're in good company. Yeah. Use Bitcoin? Oh, all those different things?
You didn't tell us what you participated. Look, you've all convicted us all.
Yeah, but it was anonymous. And the other thing is, well, okay, I'll interject here since you brought it up. It's only illegal to physically possess on your person or in your property illegal substances. It's not illegal to talk about it. So part of what I want to express in this talk is that if you've had a powerful experience with one of these things, which many of you clearly have, use your freedom of speech and talk about it. Because the thing is that if it's been transformative to you, at least in my own view, I think people deserve to hear about that. And when we use our voices to talk about something that has transformed our life in a positive way, there's nothing that we should be ashamed about. And I want to remove that level of shame from these substances because they have powerful uses that I'm about to go into. So I have tried all of those things, and they have created very powerful experiences in my life, and that's why I'm up here. So I'm going to go over a couple of really interesting studies that have been going on, clinical trials related to different kinds of psychedelics. So cluster headaches are something that affects a small portion of the population, but it's a really dangerous, condition, not necessarily because it causes death, but because there's an extremely high suicide rate, because these cluster headaches, you can't even almost call it a headache because it's such a sharp pain in these people's heads that and they can happen multiple times in a short period of time, and it can be very debilitating. I've seen some of the videos of people experiencing some of these things, and they're literally curled up in the fetal position, like either hitting their heads or like moaning because they're in so much pain. And it's really sad because at this point there's very little medication that can help these people. They can breathe in some oxygen when they feel an attack coming on that can kind of lessen it. But it's a real problem and a puzzle for modern science, or modern medicine right now. But somewhere along the line, somebody figured out that if they took either psilocybin, which is the psychedelic compound in magic mushrooms, or LSD, it stopped their headaches for over a year. And so this news kind of rippled through the cluster headache community like wildfire, because this was the only thing that they were able to help themselves with. So as you can see here, there's one quote from the Daily Beast that says, one patient had cluster headaches for 27 years. He had debilitating 3-month-long cycles and wasn't responding to meds. He was devastated. He was getting 40 cluster headaches a week. After his treatment, he had 0 headaches for 17 months. So big advances for people that were really suffering. So MAPS is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, and it's a nonprofit group that's been gathering private funds and helping scientists navigate through the federal drug agencies to be able to do research on such Schedule I substances. And one of the studies that they're really pushing through right now is using MDMA, which is ecstasy, to use in MDMA-assisted psychotherapy to treat people with post-traumatic stress disorder. And what's really amazing about this treatment is that after 2 sessions of MDMA-assisted psychotherapy, they were able to cure 83% of the participants of their PTSD. Cure. Not on drugs for the rest of their life, not on meds for the rest of their life, or not in therapy for the rest of their life, but cured. So this is big news, especially considering there's a huge veteran population coming over now that are having major problems with suicide and post-traumatic stress disorder. And on top of, the existing civilian post-traumatic stress from either traumatic accidents or, maybe a rape. So this research is going into phase 3 trials right now, which is big news, because when it goes through these phase 3 trials, it can actually, they're going through the proper channels now. So when it gets through phase 3 trials, they kind of have to make it into a medication that would be used under the supervision of a psychotherapist. It wouldn't be something you can just like prescribe, but it would be used under certain circumstances to help people with these traumatic experiences. So this is really exciting current work that's going on right now. Another really interesting compound is called ibogaine, which is a very strong psychedelic found in the root bark of an African shrub, and it has been found to alleviate the withdrawal symptoms for people that are on opiate addictions. So opiate addictions can be completely debilitating when you're trying to come off of it. It has a really high relapse rate for people that are going through programs to try and get them off of it. But ibogaine has been shown to help these people come off of the without any kind of withdrawal symptoms, but then also because it's a very powerful visionary state, they're able to look back at their life in a way that maybe reflects on why did they stop using or start using in the first place. What are the kind of interpersonal traumas or, what drew them into self-medicating in the way that they do, or they were. So that's another big part of what makes these medicines powerful, both in this one on a physiological way, but also in a sort of psychological or psycho-spiritual way, because many people have very spiritual experiences on these substances that has allowed them to see a bigger picture and their place in that bigger picture. As a little anecdote, this is my friend David. He's a performer and clown, and he was diagnosed with Tourette's and OCD when he was young, 7, 8, and had problems. He had all of the kind of tics that come along with that. And a friend of his had gone through an ibogaine treatment at one point for getting off opiates, and was like, I wonder if you think about your tics as an addiction, like you're addicted to doing your tics. And so he decided to go through an ibogaine treatment, and this is what he had to say about it. I went from a lifetime of suffering from OCD and Tourette's syndrome, complete with years of unsuccessful work with therapists and many, many prescription drugs, to my current state, healthy, happy, fully functional, drug-free, and no longer diagnosable with any mental disorder of any type. Crazy. So right now, there's no research going on like this for treating people with these kinds of conditions with drugs like this. It's not happening right now, but there are things like this that make me curious. And that's what I think our current system is lacking right now, curiosity. We're so locked in this fear and this baggage left over from a lot of poor decisions that were made when psychedelics first got introduced into our society. And now we're kind of stuck in that fear. And what we should be doing is looking for things like people that, figured out that they could cure their cluster headaches with LSD, or could cure their Tourette's with ibogaine. It's just something to be curious about. So this recently came out in Scientific American. The Controlled Substance Act of 1970 declared that these drugs have no currently accepted medical use and classified them in the most stringently regulated category of controlled substances, Schedule 1. The resulting restrictions create a de facto ban on their use in both laboratories and clinical trials, setting up a catch-22. These drugs are banned because they have no accepted medical use, but researchers cannot explore their therapeutic potential because they're banned. So you're probably still wondering, but really, how safe are these drugs? Because our society has been telling us that these drugs are bad, Acid will make you go crazy and jump out of buildings. But it doesn't match up with what the science says. And so here's a study that came out of England that did a meta-analysis of a whole bunch of different substances and what their effect would be on your psychology, sociology, kind of your interpersonal relationships, and then your physiology. So, and then they kind of put that into one parameter and then ranked them out. So, what do you think is the most dangerous drug there? Alcohol. All right. Alcohol. Right under that, heroin, crack cocaine, methamphetamines, cocaine, tobacco, cannabis, kind of in the middle, way down at the bottom, ecstasy, LSD, mushrooms. So, all right. So what's the problem if this is what the data is showing? The thing is that it's still not zero. And I think that the people that are still fearful of these things really do want to point at that. And they should, because the thing is, all substances, no matter what you do, need to be done mindfully. And the thing is that with our society right now, we have a problem with portion control across the board, whether it's eating or drinking or gambling or, overstimulation of any kind. And so what I'm looking to advocate more is not necessarily psychedelic use, but mindfulness and conscious use. And if you're using something, no matter what it is, whether illicit or not, why are you doing it? Or are you having an experience and you're letting yourself integrate from that experience? Because if you're not, what are you really getting from it? And then having a support network around you that can support you in whatever it is that you're working through. So Steve Jobs said, "Taking LSD was a profound experience, one of the most important things in my life. It reinforced my sense of what was important, creating great things instead of making money, putting things back into the stream of history and of human consciousness as much as I could." So I believe that we are entering the dawn of the psychedelic information age. Because we've had psychedelics since the beginning of time. People have been eating mushrooms, there are cave paintings. That's a whole nother talk. But we're just entering the information age. And we're also also entering the fusion of the information age and the psychedelic age, because these substances are not going away. They're powerful, and the people that they touch, people want to share them and express how they've been changed by them. And so we need to start thinking about what a world looks like where we can use these things to help people, whether it be some sort of psychological healing or being used for some kind of physiological healing. And I'm in no way advocating that everyone take psychedelics, but I am advocating for curiosity, and I am advocating for more research, because there are too many things here that are not getting funded by our government or any government at this point. There's so much potential here that we are just barely scratching the surface. And for us to ban research on something seems very strange to me. It makes me very wary when it's like, don't look that direction. Don't look that way. Don't look that. So I think we need to talk about our own experiences, release that shame, so that we start to shift the perspective on what these things are capable of, and to hopefully get more funding and more research on these things and their potential. So to that end, I recently started an organization called the Aware Project, And we've been hosting a series of events in Los Angeles around psychedelics. We have 2 salons coming up in Venice related to different aspects of psychedelia. So if you want to come be part of the psychedelic community and learn more about these things and engage in educated dialogue, please check us out. And with that, I'd like to end with a question. If we don't have freedom over our own minds, are we really free? So that's the end of my talk. Thank you. And I can take 2 or 3 questions. Sure. Yeah? Oh. Ayahuasca? With me personally? Yeah. I feel like ayahuasca is a very good teacher and needs to be done in a ceremonial setting, with people that can help guide you. On any perspective or any kind of substance that you would want to try, my recommendation is do it with someone that knows and has gone through that path and that journey before and can help guide you. Because a lot of what happened in the 60s is that a lot of people trying a lot of this stuff and there were no guides because everything was new. And so if someone has a very wide opening experience and they don't have someone to help guide them back into integrating that work that they've done into their life again, that can be very disorienting. Sure. So the question is, are psychedelics necessary to kind of spark this renaissance or this maybe awakening? I think that they are a very powerful tool, and they're not the only tool, but they are not a tool that's currently in the toolbox right now. So that's what I think that needs to change. I can take one more question. Sure. Yeah, I mean, that's some of the conversations that we need to be having as a community of what does it look like in a world where we can get a prescription for these things, or what kind of model would that look like? So some of the models that I've heard that I think make sense to me, where you might have like a kind of retreat center where you can go and have experiences with different substances under a sort of a controlled environment. And actually, I do a little plug here for some friends of mine that are running a clinic in Mexico called the Crossroads Clinic. And in Mexico, ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT, which is this one right here, are legal in Mexico, and you can go down there and legally have an experience with those things. And they have a track that's both for getting off addictions, and they also have a psychospiritual track. So if you're interested in doing those 2 things legally, there are options for there. And so that's kind of like what a model could look like, where there'd be like a retreat center where you could go and you could have an experience. Another model might be, having kind of like a driver's license, where you have to show that you are being a responsible user, and then you can get kind of like, but there's still going to be a long way before we get there, So, they're likely the path is going to be more of a prescription, like the MDMA-assisted therapy. They're looking to make clinics where you would go to their clinic, they would give you the MDMA under their supervision, have a psychotherapeutic environment for you to experience it and work through some stuff, and then follow up and aftercare. So that, I think, is a stepping stone. But it's, at the same time, the Santo Daime Church, which is a Brazilian ayahuasca church, they were able to get the freedom to use their sacrament legally in Oregon. And another Santo Daime point here in Huntington Beach was actually able to go through the same process, and now they're the only legal ayahuasca church in California. And their leader is going to be speaking at our event at the end of May. So if you're interested in that, come check that out. But so there's a lot of different things, because it's like there's a medical way, there's also sort of a spiritual, ceremonial way that you can use these things. But also I think there's a place to acknowledge and I don't like to use the word recreational, because that seems to me like reckless almost use maybe. But Rick Doblin, the head of MAPS, uses the phrase celebrational, and I really like that because these things help, or at least in my experience, they've made me be present with where I am, connected to the people around me, and celebrate life. And I think that that is so life-affirming and so beautiful that that can't be left out of this model, because we can't just focus on the medical, we can't just focus on, sort of a religious sort of experience, but this spiritual, when Santo Daime is a little bit more religious, but yeah, spiritual experience, but experience of being present and celebrating life. So with that, I will close, and you can come up and ask me more questions later. Thank you.